That day, Mark had no idea that an ordinary shopping trip with his mother-in-law would turn into a dangerous game with his own desires. A single innocent glance, a casual touch, and his familiar world began to crack at the seams. What started as caring for his wife became the beginning of the most forbidden passion of his life. But before we begin, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is there. I'm really curious to see who has joined us. Now, get comfortable. We're about to start. Mark checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The mall was buzzing, neon lights flickering off the polished tile. But he was already distracted by nerves, by anticipation, by the unusual circumstance he found himself in. Emily, his wife, had been called to work last minute, but insisted her birthday gift be chosen with a touch of taste. So here he was, with her mother, Vivian. Vivian was impossible to ignore. Even here, surrounded by color and noise, she moved gracefully through the crowd. Her blonde hair styled in soft waves that rested just above her shoulders, catching the light with each step. Her eyes were an icy blue, framed by subtle makeup that accentuated her natural features. Her dress, a pale, form-fitting midi, outlined her slender figure, hugging her waist and hips just so. Mark noticed how the fabric hinted at her curves, the delicate lace of her nude bra just barely visible beneath the neckline, and the outline of matching high-waisted panties beneath the smooth skirt. A light cashmere cardigan hung loosely over her shoulders, and simple, elegant heels gave her a poised, effortless look. Vivian was beautiful, undeniably, in a way that made Mark's thoughts stumble. Mark himself was athletic, standing at about 6 feet, with short dark hair and green eyes. He wore dark jeans and a fitted t-shirt beneath a black leather jacket, casual but sharp. Emily always said he looked like he belonged on a magazine cover, but standing beside Vivian he felt oddly outshined. As they approached the first store, Vivian turned to Mark with a smile. You know, Emily always wanted something special for her birthday. Not just a thing, but a memory. Her voice was low, warm, slightly teasing. They entered a boutique specializing in jewelry and dresses. Soft music played. The scent of perfume lingered in the air, blending with Vivian's own floral fragrance. The saleswoman, a young woman with sharp cheekbones and a professional air, greeted them and began showing a selection of delicate necklaces and bracelets. Mark let Vivian take the lead, watching as she handled each piece with practiced care. She likes silver, not gold, Vivian noted, holding a chain to her own neck for effect. Mark watched as the necklace rested above the gentle curve of her collarbone, the chain glimmering against her skin. He found himself lingering on the way the fabric of her dress clung to her chest, highlighting her full, natural shape. About a C-cup, he guessed, with a firmness that defied her age. "Would you mind?" she asked, turning her back and lifting her hair so Mark could help with the clasp. His fingers brushed her skin, soft and warm. For a brief second they both paused, a shiver of awareness passing between them. Mark cleared his throat, fastening the necklace carefully, conscious of the gentle rise and fall of her breathing. They continued browsing, the atmosphere growing more relaxed, with each passing moment. Vivan picked up a midnight blue dress, running her fingers over the silk. "I think Emily would look wonderful in this. Do you agree?" Mark nodded, though his gaze was on Vivan herself, imagining how she would look in the dress. He tried to shake the thought. She would. "You both have great taste." Vivan's lips curled in a faint, knowing smile. "Would you help me choose something? Maybe I'll try it on for Emily, just to see." He laughed, more nervously than he meant to. "Sure. I mean, if you're comfortable." A few minutes later, they were in the fitting area. The saleswoman handed Vivan the dress, and she slipped behind a velvet curtain. Mark waited, palms sweating, until the curtain swept back, and Vivan stood before him in the blue silk. The dress hugged her body, emphasizing her hourglass shape and the gentle swell of her hips. Her legs were long, toned, and Mark tried not to stare. But it was impossible not to notice how her figure rivaled that of women half her age. "Sit me up?" she asked, turning her back again. Mark's hand shook slightly as he drew the zipper up, fingers tracing the curve of her spine through the silk. For a moment, he caught a glimpse of her bra. Delicate lace, almost sheer. He swallowed, forcing himself to focus. In the mirror, Vivan turned to admire herself, but her eyes lingered on Mark's reflection behind her. "What do you think?" she asked. But the question was heavier than before. "You look beautiful. Emily will love it," he said, voice low. Vivan's cheeks flushed slightly, but she held his gaze. "Thank you, Mark. That means a lot." The curtain fell back into place, but the air was charged. Mark found himself glancing away, trying to regain composure. The saleswoman returned, offering advice, but her words faded into background noise. They moved on to a cosmetics counter, where Vivan tested perfumes. She spritzed one on her wrist and offered it to Mark. He leaned in, the scent of jasmine mingling with the warmth of her skin. He tried to ignore the electric sensation that shot through him. Later, as they browsed lingerie for Emily, Vivan playfully picked up a lacy set. "Do you think she'd like something daring?" she teased, holding it up for Mark's inspection. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. Mark chuckled, but the image stuck with him, vivid and undeniably tempting. The day continued in a haze of conversations, jokes, and unspoken thoughts. Mark realized how easy it was to talk to Vivan, how natural her laughter sounded, how her subtle confidence drew him in. They paused for coffee at a small cafe, sitting close on a velvet bench. "Emily's lucky," Vivan said, sipping her drink, her gaze softening. "You're a good man." Mark smiled. "Thank you. She means everything to me." But beneath the words, something else stirred, a connection neither of them dared to name, but both felt keenly. As the sun set outside, casting golden light through the glass, Mark noticed a strand of Vivan's hair had slipped loose. Without thinking, he reached over to tuck it back behind her ear. His fingers brushed her cheek, and for a moment, their eyes met. Soft, searching, questioning. The world outside faded away, leaving only the two of them, suspended in a moment that was too intimate, too charged to be ignored. The spell broke when Vivan glanced away, her lips curving in a gentle, secretive smile. "Shall we go?" she asked, standing gracefully, gathering her things. Mark nodded, his mind spinning. They walked back to the car, the silence between them comfortable but heavy with possibility. As they drove home, Mark replayed the day's events in his mind. The glances, the touches, the laughter. He wondered if he was imagining things, or if Vivan too felt the undercurrent of something new and dangerous between them. He glanced at her as they pulled into the driveway. She smiled, her expression open, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes, a hint of acknowledgement, a spark of complicity. "Thank you for today," she said softly, resting her hand briefly on his arm before stepping out into the evening light. Mark watched her go, heart pounding, knowing that something had shifted between them, something that could not be undone. The next morning, Mark awoke earlier than usual. Sunlight crept through the blinds, painting gold stripes across the bedroom. Emily was already gone. Her morning shift at the clinic had started early, leaving only the faint scent of her perfume on the pillow. Mark's thoughts, however, drifted not to his wife, but to Vivan. He replayed moments from the previous day, the laughter and whispered jokes, the silk beneath his fingertips, the way Vivan's eyes lingered just a little too long. He tried to distract himself with routine, a shower, coffee, a run around the quiet suburban block. Yet nothing could clear his head. At breakfast, he found himself pausing over his phone, tempted to message Vivan. He typed, deleted, and typed again before finally sending something simple. "Thank you for yesterday. Emily will love the dress. Let me know if you need anything else today." The reply came swiftly. "You were wonderful company, Mark. I might need your help again. Choosing a few accessories. Emily loves matching sets. Would you mind?" The words were casual, but Mark read more between the lines. A flutter of excitement, mixed with guilt, passed through him. He answered quickly, "Of course. Just say when." By midday, Vivan had called. Her voice, as warm and smooth as ever, somehow made Mark's nerves tingle. "I found a boutique with the perfect earrings, and maybe a silk scarf for Emily. I could use a man's perspective. I hope I am not intruding on your plans for the day." "No plans," Mark lied, glad for the excuse. They met again in the mall, this time in a quieter part of town. The boutique was brighter, more intimate than the previous one. Mark noticed the way the sunlight from the large windows caught the shine of Vivan's hair, turning it almost silver in places. Vivan's outfit today was even more stunning. A tailored cream blouse with tiny pearl buttons, slightly open at the collar, revealing a glimpse of her delicate collarbones. The fabric was thin, tracing the gentle rise of her breasts and the subtle lace of her ivory bra beneath. Her skirt, a soft pastel shade, hugged her hips and flared just above the knees. Her legs, shapely and smooth, were set off by nude heels. A silver chain gleamed at her neck, matching simple, elegant earrings. "Let's see what we can find," Vivan said, her tone light, but her eyes assessing him. As they browsed, the shop assistant, A young man with a crisp shirt and easy smile tried to catch Vivan's attention. Mark watched, amused, as Vivan flirted lightly with the assistant. Her laughter soft, gestures graceful, her confidence effortless. Yet every so often, her eyes would flicker to Mark, seeking his reaction. Mark felt an unfamiliar surge of jealousy. He knew logically that it was harmless fun. Vivan was just being herself, but he was surprised at how much he wanted her attention for himself. They selected a pair of delicate earrings, silver hoops with tiny sapphires, and a silk scarf patterned in Emily's favorite colors. Mark offered to pay, and Vivan placed a gentle hand over his. "I insist. My treat this time." Their hands touched, and Mark felt a jolt, as if electricity had sparked between them. They both paused, eyes meeting. The assistant returned with a gift box, breaking the spell. "Shall we sit for a coffee?" Vivan suggested, her smile betraying nothing. They found a corner table in a sunlit cafe, away from the midday rush. Vivan settled onto a velvet chair, her posture elegant. Mark sat opposite, unable to keep his eyes off her. "Emily's lucky," Vivan said after a pause, echoing her words from the day before. "She has a husband who truly cares." Mark felt a wave of guilt, but also a thrill at the subtle compliment. "And she has a wonderful mother." Vivan laughed, a low musical sound. "You're too kind." For a while, they spoke of harmless things, books, movies, travel. But beneath the surface, every word was laced with something unsaid. Mark found himself leaning in, drawn to Vivan's every gesture, smile. Beneath the table, he suddenly felt her foot brush against his ankle, once, then again, more deliberately. Mark froze, glancing up, but Vivan was looking out the window, lips parted as if lost in thought. The soft pressure of her foot sent a shiver up his spine. He hesitated, then let his own foot rest lightly against hers. Uncertain but hopeful. The contact remained for a minute, neither of them acknowledging it aloud. Mark's pulse quickened, his skin tingling with the unspoken invitation. After coffee, Vivan suggested they visit one more store. As they walked, Mark noticed the way her skirt swayed with each step, the gentle curve of her hips, the straightness of her back. He wondered if she was as aware of him as he was of her. They entered a small boutique specializing in accessories. The place was empty except for a bored-looking saleswoman. Vivan drifted toward a display of silk scarves, picking up one in pale pink. "This would look beautiful on Emily," she murmured. Then, more softly, "Or perhaps on someone else." She draped the scarf around her own neck, the fabric falling softly against her blouse. She turned to Mark. "Will you help me?" She lifted her hair, exposing the smooth, graceful line of her neck. Mark stepped close, looping the scarf as she guided his hands. Their fingers brushed. Her perfume enveloped him. For a moment, Mark forgot everything. Where they were, what was proper. He let his hand linger a moment longer than necessary. Vivan's eyes lifted to meet his. "Thank you, Mark," she whispered, voice just above a whisper. There was a hush in the air, as if time had slowed. Mark felt the urge to touch her cheek, to press a kiss to her lips. Instead, he simply smiled, his heart pounding. They left the store, gift bags in hand, silence hanging between them. Outside, the air was warm, sunlight sparkling on the sidewalk. Mark glanced at Vivian, searching her expression. She seemed composed, but her cheeks were slightly flushed, her breathing just a touch faster. "I think we make a good team," she said quietly, glancing at him from beneath her lashes. "We do," he replied, his voice thick with feeling. They strolled back to the parking lot, neither hurrying nor speaking. The energy between them was undeniable, charged, fragile, thrilling. Mark wished the walk would last forever. At the car, Vivian hesitated. "Thank you for coming with me again, Mark. I hope I have not kept you from anything important." He shook his head. "Not at all. He stopped, unsure how to finish. She smiled. "Good." Before Mark could open her door, Vivian stepped closer. Her hand rested lightly on his chest. Fingers splayed against the fabric of his shirt. She leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to his cheek, just at the corner of his lips. The contact was fleeting, but electric. Mark's eyes widened, his breath catching. Vivian lingered for a heartbeat, her face close to his. He could see every detail, the delicate lashes, the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, the pink of her lips. "Some things are better left unsaid, Mark," she murmured, then slipped into the car. Mark stood frozen as she drove away, his fingers touching the spot where she had kissed him. Every nerve in his body seemed to hum with longing and confusion. He stood there long after her car had vanished, feeling as if he had stepped off a ledge and was still waiting to land. That evening, Mark tried to act normal at home. Emily was cheerful, excited about her birthday, oblivious to the turmoil inside him. They ate dinner, watched a movie, and talked about nothing important. Yet every time Mark closed his eyes, he saw Vivian, her smile, her touch, the secrets in her gaze. He knew something had changed. He also knew, with a mix of fear and excitement, that it was just the beginning. It was a Thursday afternoon when Mark's phone buzzed with a new message. He was sitting in his home office, pretending to finish a report. But his thoughts kept drifting to Vivian. It had been 3 days since their last outing. Yet the memory of her touch, her scent, her lingering gaze had not faded. If anything, it had only grown more potent, blossoming into restless curiosity and a longing that gnawed at him. The message was from Vivian. "Would you have half an hour for me today? I need a second opinion on something for Emily's birthday. And maybe we could have a coffee." He read the words twice, pulse quickening. He replied before he could second-guess himself. "Of course. Just say where and when." Vivian sent the address of a chic boutique across town, followed by a smiley face. Mark hurried through the rest of his work, then changed into dark blue jeans and a crisp white shirt. As he looked in the mirror, he noticed a nervous excitement he hadn't felt since he was a teenager. The boutique was quiet and softly lit, with gold-framed mirrors and velvet armchairs. Mark spotted Vivian near a rack of silk dresses, her back turned to him. Today she wore a pale green sheath dress that fell just below her knees. Her blonde hair swept up in a loose chignon. The curve of her neck was exposed, elegant and feminine. She looked younger than ever, the fitted dress accentuating her hourglass shape, her toned arms, and her perfectly sculpted back. She greeted Mark with a warm smile. Right on time. Thank you for coming, Mark. My pleasure. You look incredible, he said, the words escaping before he could stop them. Vivan's cheeks colored delicately. Thank you. I thought Emily might like something like this for her birthday dinner. Would you be honest with me? Always. She turned to face him fully, and Mark felt his breath hitch. The dress was simple but stunning, caressing her curves, the neckline modest, yet still revealing the gentle slope of her shoulders. A thin gold chain lay above her collarbones. He noticed the subtle outline of her nude lace bra beneath the fabric. And as she moved, the faintest suggestion of matching panties over her hips. Vivan held out another dress, a deep crimson. Could you hold this while I change? Of course. She disappeared behind a dressing room curtain, leaving Mark awkwardly clutching the second dress. Soft music played in the background. After a moment, Vivan's voice drifted out. Mark, I could use some help with the zipper. His hands were sweating as he stepped around the curtain, careful to keep his eyes averted. But as he entered, he found Vivan standing in the middle of the small dressing room, the pale green dress half unzipped, exposing the lacy back of her bra and a stretch of smooth golden skin. She was holding the crimson dress to her chest, her eyes meeting his in the mirror. Could you? She asked softly, nodding at the zipper. Mark approached, heart pounding, and gently drew the zipper down. The dress slipped from her shoulders, pooling around her waist. Vivan held the crimson dress in front of her. But as she turned, the movement exposed the curve of her side, the lacy edge of her bra, and the high-cut panties that hugged her hips. The air was thick with tension. Mark's fingers brushed the bare skin of her back as he helped slide the crimson dress up, his touch lingering just a moment too long. Vivan did not move away. Instead, she leaned subtly into his hands. Their eyes met in the mirror. A question, an answer, 1,000 silent confessions. He zipped the dress, unable to ignore the intoxicating feel of her beneath his hands. Suddenly, Vivan turned, facing him in the close space. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The crimson dress fit her like a glove, hugging her body, highlighting every line, every curve. Her eyes locked onto Mark's, and slowly she reached for his hand, pressing it gently to her waist. Mark could not help himself. He drew her closer, feeling the warmth of her body, the silk under his fingers, the soft beat of her pulse. Their faces were inches apart. Vivant, he whispered. But the rest of the words caught in his throat. She closed the gap, pressing her lips to his. Soft, exploratory at first, then deepening as Mark wrapped his arms around her. The world outside the dressing room melted away. Her hands slid to his chest, his back, his neck, their bodies drawn together by a force neither could resist. Mark's hand found the small of her back, then the curve of her hip, marveling at the firmness and warmth of her figure. For a long, suspended moment, they were lost in each other. Suddenly, voices in the boutique, footsteps, laughter, broke the spell. They pulled apart, breathing hard, eyes wide with realization. Vivan laughed softly, breathless but unafraid. "We should probably finish shopping," she murmured, smoothing her hair, her cheeks flushed. Mark nodded, willing his heartbeat to slow. They stepped out of the dressing room, pretending nothing had happened. But every brush of their hands, every glance was supercharged. Mark held Vivan's shopping bags, unable to keep the smile from his lips. The saleswoman eyed them curiously, but Vivan handled it with her usual poise, chatting about fabrics and colors as if nothing in her world had changed. They paid for the dress and a silver bracelet, then left the boutique, stepping into the golden afternoon. Mark suggested coffee and Vivan agreed, leading them to a quiet cafe nearby. At their table, Vivan sipped her drink, her eyes sparkling. "I think that was a little risky, even for us." Mark grinned, unable to hide his delight. It was. For a while, they simply enjoyed the thrill of their secret, exchanging stories and laughter. Every touch of her hand on his, sending a bolt of energy through him. Suddenly, Vivan's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her smile faltering. "It's Emily. I should answer." She stepped away, her back to Mark. He watched her, feeling a pang of guilt, but also an undeniable excitement. This was a line neither of them had ever expected to cross. And yet, here they were. Vivan returned a moment later, a new intensity in her gaze. "Emily's on her way to meet us. She wanted to surprise us both." There was a tremor of nerves in her voice, a thrill, and a risk. Mark swallowed hard. "Do you want to leave?" Vivan shook her head, a mischievous smile returning. "No, we have nothing to hide. Not if we are careful." Emily arrived a few minutes later, all smiles and energy, greeting them both with hugs. She looked radiant. Her mother's beauty echoed in her own features, her eyes bright and happy. "Did you find anything good for my birthday?" she teased, eyeing the shopping bags. Vivan laughed, handing her the silver bracelet. "You will have to wait and see, darling." Mark watched the two women, feeling the ground shifting beneath him. He wondered if Emily could sense anything strange, but she was too caught up in the moment, asking questions, joking, filling the space with her laughter. For the rest of the afternoon, Mark played his part, but his mind spun with the memory of the dressing room, the feel of Vivan's lips, the softness of her body, the risk and thrill of it all. Every so often, Vivan would meet his eyes across the table, a secret smile playing at her lips. As evening fell and they said their goodbyes, Mark found himself yearning for more. The shock of what had happened lingered, the boundaries between them now forever changed. He watched Vivan slip into her car, the crimson dress still clinging to her curves. She glanced at him through the window, Her look a promise, a dare, a question he knew he would not, could not, refuse. Mark stood in the fading light, knowing nothing would ever be the same again. That night, Mark could not sleep. The memory of Vivan's kiss, the softness of her lips, and the feverish intimacy in that small dressing room kept replaying in his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her silhouette in the crimson dress, felt the heat of her breath on his cheek, remembered the thrill and the danger. Emily lay beside him, her breathing calm and deep. At one point she turned, draping an arm across his chest, murmuring something happy in her sleep. Mark ran his fingers through her hair, guilt flickering inside him. He wondered how he would ever face her mother again, how he would face himself. The next morning, a message from Vivan arrived, just as Mark was finishing his coffee. "Thank you for yesterday. I never thought I'd do something so reckless. But I do not regret a moment. You make me feel young again. Call me if you want to talk. Or if you want more." Mark's pulse quickened. He reread the words, felt a flutter in his stomach, and typed a reply. It was crazy, but I cannot stop thinking about it. I will call you soon. The day passed in a blur. Emily left for work early, leaving Mark at home, lost in thought. He tried to distract himself with chores, errands, small talk with neighbors. But Vivan was always there, just at the edge of his awareness. A secret, a longing, a risk. That evening, as Emily prepared dinner, Mark wandered out into the yard to clear his head. The sky was deep blue, fading into violet, a warm breeze stirring the trees. He sat on the porch, thinking. His phone vibrated. Another message from Vivan. "Can you meet me tonight? There is something I want to show you. I promise it will not take long." Mark hesitated only a second before responding. "Where?" "The old rose garden by the library. 9 o'clock. Discreet, I promise." He returned inside, acting casual, chatting with Emily, helping her clear the table. At 8:30, he claimed he needed to run out for gas. Emily, tired from her shift, barely noticed. The rose garden was nearly deserted, the air thick with the scent of flowers and the hush of night. Mark spotted Vivan sitting on a weathered stone bench, her blonde hair gleaming in the lamplight. She wore a soft grey sweater and a pale blue skirt, her figure elegant even in the shadows. As he approached, she stood and smiled, a little nervously. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "I could not stay away," Mark admitted, his voice barely above a breath. They sat together, side by side. For a while they said nothing, just listened to the gentle rustle of the roses and the distant sounds of the city. Vivan finally broke the silence. "I needed to see you again, but more than that, I wanted to give you something." She reached into her bag and produced a small old-fashioned key on a silver chain. "It is for you." "For us?" Mark turned the key over in his hand, confused. "What is it for?" Vivan hesitated, then leaned closer, her eyes shining in the lamplight. "I rented a little place. A studio just for painting, I told everyone. But it is really a place where no one will find us. If you want to meet me, if you want more, it is yours too. Mark felt a rush of desire and fear. The key was cool in his palm, heavy with promise and mystery. You did this for me? For us, she corrected softly. In the quiet darkness, Mark could not resist her any longer. He reached out, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Their lips met in a slow, secret kiss. Deeper this time, more certain. His hands slipped to her waist, feeling the curve of her body beneath the soft sweater. Vivan's arms slid around his neck, pulling him closer. They parted only when footsteps echoed nearby, pulling back into the shadows, hearts racing. Mark slipped the key into his pocket, their secret locked away for another night. After a long, silent moment, Vivan squeezed his hand. No one knows about this place. Not Emily, not my friends, not anyone. It will be our mystery if you want it. Mark looked into her eyes and nodded, words failing him. They walked together to the edge of the garden where their cars waited. Before leaving, Vivan pressed a final lingering kiss to his lips. Good night, Mark. Good night. The next days were a blur of ordinary life. But now every moment was colored by the secret key in Mark's pocket. Every smile from Vivan at family dinners, every casual word at gatherings, felt like a coded message. Mark found himself inventing errands, walking the dog for hours, circling the block, waiting for a moment alone so he could slip away and unlock their hidden world. One afternoon, unable to resist, Mark used the key. The studio was a cozy, sunlit room above a florist's shop, filled with canvases, old books, and the scent of turpentine and fresh flowers. Vivan arrived not long after, wearing faded jeans and a white blouse that clung to her figure. Her hair was loose, falling over her shoulders. They barely spoke. The door clicked shut, and suddenly their restraint vanished. Mark pulled her into his arms, kissing her with all the pent-up longing of days apart. Their hands explored, clumsy and urgent, Vivan's laughter muffled by Mark's lips. She unbuttoned her blouse, revealing a pale blue bra, lace-trimmed and elegant, her breasts full and inviting. Mark's hands slid down her back, feeling the curve of her body, the firmness of her hips in soft denim. Vivan's fingers found the buttons of his shirt, and soon they were tangled together, breathless. Their bodies pressed close, every secret touch burning with meaning. They spent an hour together, discovering each other's scars and smiles, their laughter filling the small room. Afterward, they lay in silence, sunlight tracing patterns across the ceiling. Do you ever regret this? Mark asked softly, tracing a finger along Vivan's arm. Vivan shook her head, gazing at him with gentle eyes. No, do you? Sometimes, Mark admitted. But then I see you, and it all disappears. Vivan smiled, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Then let us not think about regrets. Let us just be here in this moment. That evening, Mark returned home, the scent of Vivan's perfume still clinging to his skin. Emily greeted him with a kiss, her eyes full of trust. Mark felt a pang of guilt sharper than ever. But he forced a smile, determined to play his part. He lay awake long into the night, the key pressed in his hand, the memory of Vivan's laughter echoing in his ears. But as the days passed, small things began to shift. Emily grew quieter, watching Mark with new intensity. Once she asked, "Is everything all right? You seem distracted." Mark fumbled for words. "Just work, that is all." Emily nodded, but her eyes were troubled. The next morning, Mark found a note on the kitchen counter, written in Emily's neat script. "I hope you are happy, Mark. I just want you to be honest with me." Mark stared at the note, heart pounding. Did she know? Had she seen him with Vivan? Or was it only suspicion? The natural intuition of someone who loved him? The mystery deepened, the walls closing in around him. Mark hid the key more carefully, checked his phone obsessively, watching for any sign that their secret had been discovered. He met Vivan at the studio twice more, each time more cautious, their passion tinged now with fear and excitement. The secrecy only made their moments more intense, every embrace a stolen treasure. One evening, as they parted, Vivan pressed her lips to his ear. "I think Emily suspects something. She is asking questions." Mark's blood turned cold. "What will we do?" Vivan's eyes darkened, but she smiled with her usual calm. "We will be careful. That is all we can do." But as Mark drove home that night, the key heavy in his pocket, he wondered how much longer their secret could last. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope for Mark. He was constantly aware of Emily's shifting moods, her searching glances, the silences that had grown longer between them. Vivan too seemed to sense the pressure mounting. Her messages became more careful, their meetings briefer, each goodbye carrying an unspoken question. How long can this last? Mark still kept the key, though now it weighed heavy in his pocket. The secret studio, once a place of liberation and delight, now felt shadowed by anxiety. He saw Vivan only when the risk seemed lowest, each encounter fraught with the thrill of the forbidden and the fear of discovery. It was a Saturday evening when the tension finally snapped. Emily was hosting a small dinner for her birthday, just family and a few close friends. The house was filled with laughter, the clink of glasses, the scent of cake and roast. Mark, always the attentive husband, played his part perfectly, pouring wine, telling stories, making Emily laugh. Yet inside he was a bundle of nerves. Vivan arrived a little late, apologizing with a radiant smile that did nothing to disguise the strain in her eyes. She wore a navy blue dress that made her eyes look even brighter. Her blonde hair twisted into a loose braid over one shoulder. Mark could not help but notice how beautiful she was. Her figure as elegant as ever, the dress subtly hugging her waist and hips, hinting at the lace of her white bra beneath. A simple pearl necklace rested above her collarbone, her earrings catching the light as she moved. Throughout the evening, their eyes met across the table. A glance too long, a smile too private. Mark felt as if everyone in the room could see the invisible thread connecting them. After dessert, Emily gathered everyone for gifts. She beamed as she opened each box. A set of books from her father, a delicate bracelet from her best friend, a silk scarf from Mark. Finally, Vivian handed her a small velvet box. Emily opened it to find the silver bracelet they had chosen together. She threw her arms around her mother. "It's perfect. Thank you, Mum." Mark smiled, but his heart thudded with nerves. When the guests finally left and the house grew quiet, Emily lingered in the kitchen, clearing plates. Mark followed, offering to help. "Thank you for tonight," Emily said quietly, her back to him. "It was really special." Mark hesitated, sensing something in her voice. "You deserve it." Emily turned, her eyes searching his. "Mark, can I ask you something?" He nodded, bracing himself. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. Have you been happy with me lately? Really happy?" Mark felt his throat tighten. He wanted to lie, to reassure her, but something in Emily's gaze made him pause. "I love you, Emily. Of course I'm happy." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "If there's ever anything you want to tell me, you know you can, right?" He managed a nod, his mind racing. That night, sleep would not come. Mark lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the weight of secrets pressing down on him. He thought about Vivian, their stolen moments, the passion and the risk. He thought about Emily, her trust and her kindness, and the look in her eyes when she had asked her question. The next day, Vivian called. "We need to talk," she said, her voice trembling just enough to betray her calm. "Please, come to the studio. I'll wait." Mark agreed. He made some excuse to Emily, heart pounding, and drove across town. Vivian was waiting at the studio door, her arms wrapped around herself. Today she wore a cream sweater, soft and loose, and jeans that accentuated her long legs and slim hips. Her hair was down, tousled, her blue eyes shadowed with worry. Inside, the studio was flooded with late afternoon light. Mark closed the door behind them, and for a moment neither spoke. Finally, Vivian stepped close, taking his hands in hers. "I cannot do this anymore, Mark," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I love being with you, but the secrecy, the guilt, it's too much. Emily is my daughter. She trusts me. I cannot keep betraying her." Mark felt the air go out of him. He tried to speak, but Vivian shook her head gently, tears gathering in her eyes. "No, let me finish. I do not regret what we had, not for a moment. You reminded me what it means to feel alive, to be wanted. I will always treasure that. But we have to let go, for Emily, for ourselves." In that quiet, sunlit room, they held each other one last time. Mark kissed Vivian softly, tasting the salt of her tears, the sweetness of goodbye. Their hands lingered on each other's faces, memorizing the lines, the warmth, the memories. They did not undress, did not rush. Instead, their embrace was slow and tender, a final act of care. Vivian's arms around his neck, Mark's hands at her waist, the gentle curve of her back beneath the sweater. They whispered thank yous, apologies, and promises to remember. When they finally parted, Mark felt a hollow ache in his chest, but also a strange relief. The secret, for all its thrill, had become a burden neither of them could carry anymore. Vivian slipped the key from his hand and pressed it back into his palm. "Keep it if you like, or throw it away. I trust you." She kissed his cheek, one last lingering kiss, then left the studio, pausing at the door to smile at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Then she was gone. Mark drove home slowly, the city blurred by memory and regret. When he walked in, Emily was in the living room, curled up with a book. She looked up, her expression open and tired. "Long day?" she asked. Mark nodded, sinking onto the couch beside her. For a while they sat in silence. Finally, Mark spoke, his voice soft. "Emily, I haven't been honest with you." She set her book aside, turning to face him. "About what?" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I got close to someone. Too close. It's over now, but I needed you to know." Emily listened quietly, her eyes wide but dry. When Mark finished, she took his hand in hers. "Thank you for telling me," she said simply. "That's all I wanted. Honesty." They sat together for a long time, saying nothing more. The sun set outside, painting the walls with soft golden light. In the weeks that followed, things slowly settled. Mark and Emily went for long walks, talked more honestly, and found new ways to reconnect. The air between them was not the same as before. There was a scar, but also a new gentleness, a fragile trust. Mark saw Vivian from time to time, at family dinners, in passing. She always greeted him with a smile, graceful and composed, her eyes reflecting a shared past, but never lingering too long. Their secret remained just that, a memory, tucked away, a chapter closed. Sometimes, when Mark passed the old studio, he would pause, hand brushing the key in his pocket. He would remember Vivian's laughter, the rush of stolen kisses, and the lesson he had learned. That desire could be beautiful, but the truth, however painful, was what set him free. And in the end, as summer turned to autumn and life went on, Mark found peace in the simple things. A walk with Emily, a quiet evening at home, the soft comfort of honesty, and the gentle promise of a new beginning.